Come down. Ooh, you make my high come down. Always tripping when you come around. Never have to cut you out like right now. You see, I don't have to drive me. You can say that for your mama. Maybe you should smoke some. Me try the marijuana. I was never you good. The vibe was straight. Showed you a couple of things and they feel strange. I treated you right. Everything was a gift from a time to your bag and the color on your lip.
Welcome to the Seahawks Man-to-Man podcast, powered by Blue Wire. Shout out to the new company. My name is Michael-Shawn and You guys can follow me on whatever Elon Musk is calling that app these days. My @name has not changed, @Mike Dugar. That is MikeDugar. Shout out to everyone who is watching or listening via our YouTube channel. Seahawks Man-to-Man is the name of the channel. For all my audio people, go ahead to YouTube right now, like and subscribe, and you can come right back. Either way, we appreciate the love and support, no matter how you digest the podcast. Chris, go ahead and talk to him.
What is going on, everybody? It's your boy, Christopher Kidd. You can follow me on Twitter at CKIDD206, and that's CKID206.
All right. I am coming to you live from Boston. Or not live. We recorded this, but coming to you from Boston. Made it back. Chris, I don't know if you knew this. I texted to you. Dog, Foxborough is far from Boston. Like that is in terms of major city to where the team plays, that might be one of the further trips I've been on. Like between like Phoenix and Glendale is a pretty good little hike. And then yeah, man, took me like 50 minutes to get back from Gillette Stadium to my hotel, which is in downtown Boston. Quite the hike. Yeah, no, right? I was like, yes. I'm trying to think of it if there's other. I mean, obviously, East Rutherford, New Jersey is not close to it's not that close to New York. But I feel even my ride I was in Times Square to the Giants game wasn't even as bad as today. Anyway, coming to you guys live from Boston. Seahawks got a win, the second of the Mike McDonald era, 23-20 in overtime. They get it done. Chris, a very very good performances from a lot of different people, different sides of the ball. But I feel like we would be remiss not to start with number 7, Geno Smith, and the offense in general, but particularly 7, man. This is one of those games where, like, him asking for a contract extension in the offseason, the Seahawks are probably like, hey, brother, no. Go ahead and lace him up, and we'll talk. Then you have a game like this where it's like, now I see why he wanted to re-up on that. Because Chris, this was one of those, hey man, that's a real spinner. That's a real spinner. I don't know how much they were talking about him on the broadcast, but up in the press box where we could see all the throws and the pressure he was under and some of those windows, we was up there like, damn, that dude can really sling it.
Yes, he was very impressive. And speaking of that efficiency of the offense, third down, they went 7 of 15 on Sunday. Pretty impressive. And a couple of those stood out to me because one throw that he had the JSN, just a laser over the middle. It's one of those throws. It was early in the third quarter, and it's 3rd and 7, and Geno just drops back. JSN finds a little pocket over their zone and just throws it where only JSN can catch it. Hits him in stride, but allows him to get down so he doesn't take a big hit from the safety or people that are making their way over to that play. And that was just a throw that I'm thinking. When I saw it in real time, I said, damn, I don't know how many people can make that throw, especially if I'm not mistaken, they have a D tackle. I think we talked about off wax, but I think it's the same play, Mike, where the defensive tackle is dropping into coverage to try to get there. And Geno's he's just so confident and so calm under pressure, just finds a way to get it in there. And also a great catch by JSN, who dropped the pass earlier in the game, but was able to make up for it actually the very next play. So a lot of up and down with drops, that is, from the Seahawks off wide receivers. But overall, yeah, to your point, Geno had a phenomenal day, and he ended with 300. So fantasy owners, I hope you had Geno as your quarterback on Sunday.
Yeah, I might need to pick up Geno in one of my leagues. I got Tua, and his brain just turns into mush.
Yeesh.
Again on national TV. Yeah, I'm streaming. But yeah, let me look, thank you for bringing up Geno's numbers here. Let me look at these real quick. So he was officially, look at the box score here. Officially 33 of 44. Like you said, there was some drop issues. I charted 5. PFF, I just checked. They agree with me. They all 5. And we had a debate about drops last week. Fascinating responses on my tweet on that, on the DK potential drop or PBU discussion. But I charted 5. PFF had 5. They agree with me. So 33 of 44, 5 drops. And then one of those is the spike at the end of the first half after DK's catch. So really, you're looking at 5 true incompletions. Like every quarterback has drops, but if we're just trying to analyze the quarterback's play today, he was hitting guys in the hands. Really, really, really solid day, 327 yards. And Chris, it was on a day where, and this is kind of an alarming thing going forward, but on a day
Yeah.
where he's got his third string right tackle in there against a pretty good Patriots pass rush, as you guys saw. Third string right tackle in there, Stone Forsythe in for George Fant, who's dealing with a knee injury. And then you had a rotating right guard situation, with Christian Haynes and Anthony Bradford not exchanging series for series, but definitely swapping. Haynes played more than one series. So you got an alternating situation going on there. Usually when you have that, what do you want to do? All right, let's take some pressure off of our QB. Let's get the run game going. Chris, would you like me to read Zach Charbonnet's numbers today?
It wasn't
Go
pretty.
ahead. Let me go ahead and do that for the people at home. I know they watch the game, but let's just do it anyway. 14 carries for 38 yards and a touchdown, a 1-yard touchdown.
I will say this, though. While the run game did not work, it wasn't effective, the Patriots still had to respect it just because of the threat. Not saying that the Seahawks executed the way they wanted to, but the simple idea that, damn, Zach could break one for 13, 14 yards. And they kept running the football. It wasn't efficient, as you just pointed out with the numbers, but they continued
That's beyond
to
not
do
efficient. That's 2.7 a carry. That's pretty
Poor.
bad. That's awful.
So
that's awful.
On hindsight, it was good that they still tried it. They didn't just give up and say, we're going to throw the rock all over the place. Although in that second half, my goodness, Geno on, I forget what drive it was, but my goodness, they just went empty, and Geno was able to just deliver. So outside of that, the good news is they continue to try to run the ball, even in situations where I'm thinking, yeah, just pass it. But they tried to keep it honest because you want to be able to do play action out of that. It just creates more problems for the defense, even if it's not effective, which it wasn't.
The issue is I'm generally with you usually. Geno had, so run you some numbers here, or run our people some numbers, not just you. He had 35 dropbacks on first and second down today. I'm not looking at like 2-minute stuff, which probably skews those numbers a little bit. Whereas Zach had 12 carries on an early down situation. So a really heavy drop back situation. Total dropbacks, I think, was in the 40s, 47. Yeah, 47 total dropbacks. But in general, I think that would be fine. But the issue is the Patriots are a heavy man coverage team generally. I don't know what their splits were for today, but just generally they play a decent amount of man. So like their version of respecting the run is not as vulnerable as a team like Denver. That's like a kind of a too high team. So when they're when they're respecting, it just looks a little different. Like all that man they were playing, it kind of changes the situation a little bit. But yeah, they didn't totally give up on it. But boy, like you said, I chart every what type of alignment every play is in my little notebook, play by play by hand. I'll write SG if they're in shotgun, PI if they're in pistol, EMP if they're in empty, and then UC if they're under center. Right. And then I'm not gonna read all of it right this second, but like I have a lot of EMPs today. It was probably a lot more EMPs than last week. Cause like you said, eventually it wasn't total giving up, but it was a lot of, man, we're not even letting y'all think we might run it. Empty, go, empty, go, empty, go, or start an empty motion to the shotgun, which is good because that, there's still a threat of the run there because we could have a shotgun run, but those weren't working either. it was just a lot of Geno save us. It was one of those games that you usually don't associate with Geno. Like usually you think like if a team's getting run on, they're not running the ball, their O-line's a little leaky, you would think like, and they still win and the guy balls out. You associate those games, I feel like we do with like Lamar Jackson, who kind of has to put the team on his back. Josh Allen, put the team on his back. Mahomes, we saw last year quite a bit, put the team on his back, and even Mahomes had a run game. There's some other guys I'm probably missing that have just Kyler Murray puts the team on his back sometimes. Not today, but just in general. But Geno had one of those games today where he was just getting. I mean, the defense they had some key stops. Getting run all over like that wasn't great. But I feel like this was a hop on my back. I'm about to carry us to the promised land game from 7. Some of the throws, the maneuver in the pocket, and maneuver in the pocket, like there's a couple examples that really stand out. And we may do a film breakdown on these some later in the week. But your play that you mentioned, that 3rd and 7 to Jackson, where he buys some time by sliding left against a simulated pressure, sees Keon White, defensive lineman, bailing all the way back deep. It's like, okay, where's Jackson? And then on the 3rd and 6, little flip to Zach Charbonnet in the flat and overtime, Geno basically just backpedals, buys some time for Zach to get all the way across the formation so he could check it down to him in the flat. Zach does the rest, basically puts J-My in field goal range. I think they still had to make one more toss. I think Tyler Lockett. But then that's going to be my final example. On a sprint out to the right, Geno reverses course, comes all the way back and floats one to Tyler, man, for 16 yards. That basically ices the game. Like that type of stuff. Again, we usually associate those, he carried the team today performances with some other guys who are more in the superstar category. I mean, we've even seen Brock Purdy just go crazy on teams, But Geno had one of them games today where he wasn't getting much. He was getting some timely stuff from special teams and defense. Shout out to Tyrel Dodson. We'll probably talk about him a little later when we talk about the run defense. And then Julian Love blocking the field goal, hashtag never kick. Like he got some help, but just in the big picture, that was definitely like a goddamn. They won the game because of who was playing Q. And then, not to mention, and there's some good catches by Jackson. Good drawing DPIs by Tyler. I think Tyler drew like 40 yards in DPI penalties today. The first one, such a gimme. There's no way in God's green earth Tyler was going to catch that ball in the end zone. They threw it anyway. But they got like the Seahawks got one back. I want to say on Spoon. Spoon got called for one where the guy wasn't going to catch it. Yeah. Spoon shoving him made the ball look more catchable than it was because he flies into the direction of the ball when really he flies like that to make it look catchable because Spoon just checks it. But anyway, too bad DPI calls. But Geno wasn't exactly working with the best day from his wideouts either. They just, even if you want to scrap Noah's drop, since that was a little high, his first drop, that was a little high on a crosser that probably wasn't going to get the first down anyway. Like the other 4 were legitimately like, dog, you should catch that. Yeah, you should catch that. Not even no ifs, ands, or maybes. It's like, okay, you should catch that. Like dealing with all that and a game plan that just kept having him just drop back and empty and shotgun where it's just not a ton of threat of the run too much schematically, at least from the defense's view. Yeah, man, that's some real deal balling right there. I thought they'd be able to run the ball even without Ken Walker. Boy, was I wrong. Very wrong. That was awful. And we'll get to that too. We got a bunch of questions about the O-line because I feel like that's going to be our thing every week. I thought they'd be able to run it. They could not. Instead, Grubb didn't fully abandon it, to your point, but he stopped believing in it. Let's put it that way. He's probably like, I'll run it for good measure, but I'm already preparing for 2nd and 8.
Well, how about this, Mike? In overtime, they didn't run it once. It started off empty.
No, they did. They ran it once. Their final play was a 9-yard run.
And that don't count. I scrubbed that.
That's just my bad.
They did that just to get it centered, man. I'm not hearing it. He gained 9 yards on that.
Maybe. It was funny because it probably was like a run to center the ball, perhaps. I'd have to go back and look.
Outside,
but then
right?
Zach bounced it outside. I was like, oh, that's dangerous because if that's a run designed to go inside and Zach bounces it outside and you get like a holding call on Charles or something because he's not expecting that,
out of field goal
backing
range.
you up 10 yards, I don't know if it would have totally been out of field goal range. I think that would have been the difference between here. We can just look. It won't take me that long. That would have been the difference between the 32-yard line and the 13. So it's wow, so 31 versus a 50 or something like that. I think my math may be off there, but it would have been a big difference. Still a makeable kick, but obviously much tougher. So yeah, you're right. That was their final. That was their only run play of the drive. Otherwise, it was empty under center. I think
It was shotgun the
DPI.
next one.
Okay, yeah. So empty shotgun, the
Shotgun,
DPI
empty.
shotgun DPI, empty shotgun, shotgun. Oh man. Oh, and then another shotgun on the sprint out. Yeah, nah,
Yeah.
man. And then they brought in 13 personnel to run it once with Zach. Basically with
Hey,
the
center the
game
football, guys,
on
so our
ice.
guy can nail this and get out of here.
Well, they're probably just trying to get a few more yards to make it comfortable because at that point the ball was at the Tyler caught it to the 38. So they did need a few. Oh no, excuse me. Tyler caught it down to the 22. So that's a 40-yard field goal, which is real makeable, but you want to push it a little closer, make 35-ish. They're probably thinking. But yeah, to your point about how Grubb felt about the run in the end, and the kind of point I'm making too. When it was closing time, he put the ball in Seven's hands because he's not a dummy. I think we both have said that in some variation on the show leading into the season. Like, there's going to be some things that are going to happen with this offense that you can guess are going to happen because Grubb's not stupid. Like, he's like, yo, I see the matchups. I see the issues in our team, but I also see 7, 11, 14, and 16. And at the end of the day, if I trust them 4, we should be okay. And that's what happened today. And it was definitely one of those games you could go back and look like, wow, they won that because they had 7. Not to say his pass catchers did nothing. What did JSN go over today? I think a buck.
He had over 112, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah.
without looking it up. But he had a very efficient day outside of his 2
Yeah.
drops.
Yeah. He had 1 drop. Noah had 2. DK had 2.
Oh yeah, the other one was knocked away. Correct. So yeah, he had 12 for 117, and then DK went 10 for 129.
Yeah, whew, boy, look at these targets though. 30 targets between them. Woo, I feel like that's what people were wanting coming into the season. Like, they kept asking us questions about, is Jackson going to have a bigger role? Is Jackson going to have a bigger role? And then week 1, it was like, nah, don't forget about old reliable and Tyler. And then today it was like, all right, time to let 11 loose and get busy, man. Really good performance by them. There's some other specifics we can maybe get into via the questions, but I definitely wanted to start with Geno because I felt like he was the key. This was his, I should know, like, his game-winning drive count. I feel like he led the league last year in game-winning drives.
He had 5 last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he had 5 game-winning drives last year and 4 fourth-quarter comebacks. Both of those led the league last year. And then his first year as a starter with the Seahawks, he had 3 game-winning drives and then 2 fourth-quarter comebacks. And this is 2023 was Geno's second time leading the league in game-winning drives. He also did it as a rookie, then with 5. Right, so like, he's a clutch dude. And one more nugget before we get to the questions. I thought it was very notable that Julian Love noted that Geno during the game, at halftime was fired up, but then during the whole game was just going up and down the sideline, like firing guys up, trying to, encourage them, give them juice. This was a 10 a.m. start Pacific time, so guys still had to adjust a little bit. They've been here since Friday, but still had to adjust a little bit. And Julian mentioned that they didn't have the necessary energy, at least on his side of the ball. And he was noting that, hey, Geno brought it. Like, we were feeding off Geno, he's just a confident guy. Like he said today, when Julian blocked the kick, he was like, all right, we're good. We got him. Like, he lost the coin toss, but he already knew the defense was like, oh yeah, go ahead, 3 and out, and then I'm about to walk him down. Watch this, and just goes and do it. And then credit to him, I think his first question in the press conference, he got asked about his game-winning drives, and then he did the Russ. He started rattling off everyone else. He thanked Grubb, I think, shouted out the O-line, shouted out his receivers, and I'm like, dang, man, that's also part of being a quarterback. You did your thing, but go ahead and credit everyone else because that's how the job goes. So let me see this
it's
first
called
answer.
Being a leader.
Yeah, he got asked about his game-winning drives, and he said, hats off to the Patriots. And he said he shouted out the defense. He shouted out Julian. He shouted out Grubb. Then he shouted out the O-line. Then he shouted out the receivers. And then his final line is, really made it easy for me and allowed me to go out there and do my job. Yeah, it is leadership. And it's also a lie. Nothing about that looked easy, brother. Nothing about that looked like it was easy. But that's what you're supposed to say. Sometimes you're supposed to get on the podium and lie. Good for him. Good for him. That's a part of the job as well. Because, brother, we have eyes. There was some good play calls and stuff. But we saw you hitting guys in the hands. We saw Charbonnet just running into Laken Tomlinson's back because they couldn't block. We saw what did Antonio Gibson have today? Let's look this up. 11 for 96. That's 8.7 yards a pop. And then 21 for 81 for Ramondre Stevenson and then a touchdown. So those guys went crazy. It's particularly in the second half. So yeah, no, I don't think that anybody made it easy for you. That's why you had to walk down a team that probably won't win 6 games, but got it done. And the 2-0. Chris, they're gonna fly back home, first class. Julian Love told us that they're first class both ways now. Yeah,
big time. Mike McDonald
yeah, last
making
year,
changes.
Yeah, they also just got a bigger plane too, so it's just first class. But before they got first class only on the way back if they won. Otherwise, they had to sit in the back. Now they got a bigger plane. They're in a 747 now, and they're in first class both ways. But comfy ride back, and they can correct some stuff knowing that they won. You know, because they had several closers today, and we'll shout out some of them as we get into some of the questions. But I felt like the main closer, Tyrel Dodson being the other one. 2 co-main closers, I guess. Geno, man, spun that thing, spun it when he didn't have a lot of help. And those are the type of guys. I feel like those are the type of guys you pay. I feel like some guys are getting paid when they need all this help. You know, you go look at someone like Trevor Lawrence, for instance, and then even Daniel Jones and Kirk Cousins, guys who feel like who need some help. Whereas Geno can have games like this, where it's like, go make it happen. Because the Patriots aren't that good, but their defense is solid, and actually, I think their defense is going to be really good. And made it happen. Good for him. Good for them too. Before we get to the questions, shout out to 7 closing the door.
Real quick though, you mentioned last season when they lost, they didn't get to fly first class. Can you imagine how miserable that flight must have been after that Baltimore loss?
Oh, yeah, man. All of the even Cincinnati is not super close. You know, that was a tough one as well. Because it's really tough because I think in the old system, I think the veterans, it was like a veteran priority on both ways. So I think the crappier seats were always in the back. And so like, it really must suck for like a young offensive lineman and defensive lineman. And you're just big as hell in the back.
Cramped.
They're not on like a tiny plane per se, but you know, it's just some of these guys.
But Mike, when you 6'6", 300 pounds, man, there's only so much room for you on a plane. Especially if you're not flying first class.
Right. Yeah, you know, I mean, first world problems, but still, like, you know, Cam Young as a rookie, he big as hell, you know, back of the plane gotta suck, you know. So now it's first class both ways, but now it's a good flight. You can like, all right, we're fixing things after a win, you know. 2-0. I don't know how many teams in the NFC are 2-0. No.
Ooh, actually, I was thinking NFC
Vikings,
West,
but the Vikings, the Saints, good lord, they're putting it on people. The Bucks are 2-0, and the Falcons. Oh no, excuse me. The Eagles are 1-0, and at the time of this recording, they have not played yet. They play Monday, so there could be a few teams. The Bears are also playing as we're recording right now, but I believe they are getting whipped on. So not a lot of teams 2-0. So credit to the Seahawks for getting there to start the Mike McDonald era.
Well, you mentioned it, Mike. Time for some Twitter questions. We got quite a few, so let's jump right into it. First one comes from Cade Ashby. With 2 games down, what is the offensive identity? Week 1, it was the run. Week 2, a lot of passing. Mike, what is the identity of this team 2 weeks in so far?
I feel like the identity is what it should have been a version of last year, and perhaps the year before that, but particularly when Jackson showed up, is however we can get the ball to our best players, that's what we are going to do. And we have to find a way to do it without screens, you know, because that would be the easy way if you can't run it. And you see Grubb, he always believes to start the game.
Yeah, because he listens
Look.
to this podcast and he's rocking with me. He understands, Chris. I got to keep the defense honest. Hell, if they don't have a penalty, there was a screen that actually it popped for a few yards, and then there was a legal.
But that's the problem. They're
I don't
not
wanna hear the
coaching it
problem.
well enough. You're talking about the
It's
one
gonna-
where Lakin Tomlinson is 8 yards downfield before DK even catches the pill. That's a problem with
That's
screens
the one.
too.
Yes.
Yes, I
Yes.
know exactly which one you're talking about. You know, I write down all the screens, underline the hell out them joints in my notebook, man. It was just off, and that play only gained 2 yards. Like
Yeah.
it was such a bad screen that the Patriots declined the penalty. Like they was like, take your little funky 2 yards. We'll go 3rd and 5. Now I think they might have converted that 3rd and 5, but still they declined the penalty. That's how ineffective it was. Look, man.
Oh, you know
I'm
what?
glad-
The other one was the Hawks' 4th possession. It was a shotgun screen to JSN, but offsetting penalties. They had to replay. That one actually gained yards. That was the best one.
It did, but they got lucky that the guy that DK was holding on the play ended up grabbing Jackson's face mask. I believe that was Christian Gonzalez. See what I'm saying? Like it was just not good stuff, and even you as a screen advocate can acknowledge that if they are going to run a screen, like we had to do a screen Seahawks draft of the people who should get the ball on a screen, we can probably agree Tyler is not high on the list.
I tweeted that out immediately.
I
I say, I'm not going to get into it because we don't want to get too much on the screens because I know that wasn't specifically the question. I just know you're adding some nuance to it because, hey, if you can't run the football, it'd be nice to throw a screen, but in this scenario, there's got to be other ways.
Yeah, no, because that's part of the dilemma. You have to manufacture easy, safe situations that get your linemen moving, that aren't always moving forward. They don't always have them backpedaling, which is what happens when you do dropbacks. How can you do that? Fly sweeps, screens, or another way to get them going forward. Just get gravity on their side, or physics, or however. Just get that on their side. You can't just have them going backwards all the time. It's just hard, even for the best O-lines in the league. So I know that's part of Grubb's thinking too, but I feel like, anyway, to the question about the identity, right now, through 2 games, it's whatever it takes to get the ball in the hands of the best people. That's what it's got to be. In week 1, that was a lot of Ken Walker, because legitimately, he is the best player on the Seahawks with the ball in his hands. It's not even close. Get him the ball when he's healthy. If he's not in the game, it can get a little dicey. Then it's like, do we feed Jackson? We feed Tyler? Feed DK? Whatever? Do we feed everybody? That I feel like that is and we talked a little bit about that. I feel like in our one big thing, maybe. No. I wrote about it a little bit, but they're gonna hunt these matchups. Oh, we talked about that post game last week too. Like they're gonna hunt the matchups. They are. Find the matchup. Sometimes it's just giving the ball to Ken. Other days it won't be. And I feel like that is the quote unquote identity. It's early, but that's kind of what I'm seeing, what I've kind of been hearing from people behind the scenes. I think I talked about that before the season even started. Like they're going to find out in what ways can we get the best guys the ball. Even if that means we're not running it a ton, just how can we manufacture easy ways to get our best guys the ball? And Grubb made that happen today. So he's like, gets a little shout out too on top of 7 shout out to start the show.
Tanner wants to know if Geno continues playing at this level, could John extend him before the bye week?
Well, see, the problem is Geno then has no incentive to do that. Like if you're Geno, you've been betting on yourself for over a decade. Why stop now? Why would you take a deal at week, whatever their bye week is, 10, 11, when you feel like you're going to keep balling? You're going to ball in the playoffs. Like this is his thinking, you're going to ball in the playoffs, and the numbers is going to go up. Purdy gets paid. We already got a $60 million a year guy in Dak, so Purdy ups the average. You're not going to reset Purdy because of age, but still it just ups the number. For quarterbacks. So yeah, I think if you're Geno at that point, you don't even have any motivation to do it. The Seahawks do because they're trying to get a bargain. But if you're Geno, you're like, I already bet on myself. I'm about to keep balling. Season started. Watch me throw. I can't guarantee that'd be his stop, but I think he's got a pretty veteran agent. I forget his name, but his agent, yeah, he not going. I think it might be Chafee Fields, maybe. But his agent, he's smart. Probably not taking that. If Geno's balling and they're in first place through like week 10 or whatever, it's like, hey, you guys want to talk about a deal? No, call us in February. after the Super Bowl. That's what they're gonna say. That's what they're gonna think.
This one comes from Mar. With JSN's emergence, would you move on from Tyler and try to invest more in the offensive line?
I just think that sounds so good in theory, but then sounds like much harder in application. There really just aren't that many good offensive linemen out there. That's one. You really got to coach it up. You really do. Um, and the other part of that is no, because Tyler can go win you a game. Tyler can still win you games in the NFL.
Saw it
It's real
today.
deal.
A
Yeah,
little bit.
you saw it today,
Or Sunday,
a little
excuse
bit.
me.
Yeah, you saw it Sunday, and you also saw it week 1 though to start the year, with no
Yeah.
training camp, no preseason, thigh injury, just barbecue chicken, Riley Moss all game. You know what I'm saying? Like it's two pronged. No, the answer is but I feel like part 1 is so much bigger than that though too. Like, what team are you calling right now, particularly as O-line injuries stack up? I know we don't. If we were to do it, maybe we should start each show with that O-line injury report around the league. Guys
Yeah, the
are
Rams are number
dropping.
1 right now. Woo.
Dog, the Rams will probably pay top dollar for any dude over 300. He don't even got to play football. If he just weighs over 310, maybe the Rams would just take him, because that's just one team. Go look around the league. Linemen are dropping. They're dropping. So there's going to be teams. It's just not. It's not excess linemen around the league, and even if there are other teams far more desperate. That's why drafting them and developing them is so important, and that's why it's what they drafted 3 linemen. You got to develop Laumea, cat from the Pac-12. You got to develop Mike Jarrell, cat from super small school. You have to. McClendon Curtis's guys like that. You have to. Olu Owatimi, because you can call around the league and be like, hey, we got Tyler Lockett for you. Give us a Pro Bowl guard. No, that's nobody doing that. No, that's not how it works, because they know that guards are too important. Or give us your Pro Bowl tackle. You know what I'm saying? No, nobody doing that. So even if you wanted to, even if the answer to that question was yes, as soon as you pick up the phone, if you're John Snyder, you're just gonna get hung up on. Eventually, guys are gonna be sitting around the league talking about, hey, you hear from John? He bugging, huh? Like other GMs that don't, ain't even involved. They're gonna be sitting there in group chats or something like that on FaceTime. Falcons GM sitting there talking to the Titans GM, like, John called you too, huh? That boy crazy. It's just gonna be stuff. It's gonna be stuff like that, because that's how hard it is to acquire excess linemen. It's just unrealistic.
From Chris Hamilton, why does Geno keep being underrated by the national media?
I feel like we have to specify a little bit national media, because I feel like there are some people who are big Geno people. I want to give them their credit.
Stephen
Like,
Ruiz,
yeah, Stephen Ruiz of the
the
Ringer.
Ringer.
He does his weekly quarterback rankings. I think he had Geno at 10 going into the
He had
week.
correct. Going into the
Yeah,
season, he was number top 10.
yeah. Well, was he 10 going into week
Yeah,
1? I know he was.
Yep.
I was.
He was
He
10
was post week 1.
Yeah, he was going into the season at number 10, and he stayed at number 10 after week 1.
Okay,
But I'm sure
thank you.
he'll jump
So
up after this one.
absolutely, and Trevor Lawrence will probably drop out. I didn't watch much of their game, but yeah, it sounds bad. So
They lost.
yeah, well, he could have played well, but they scored like 13 points or something like that.
That's
Anyway,
the nugget right there.
yeah, and I don't think his numbers were great. But besides that, Geno probably goes up. So you got Ruiz. Mina Kimes is the big Geno person. She's national media. I know she's a Seahawks fan, but she falls into the national media bucket. Nate Tice, formerly of The Athletic. I think Nate works for NFL Network now.
Yahoo. Yes, he does.
Yeah, he does some
Analyst.
writing for Yahoo, some NFL Network stuff. Either way, he is quote unquote national media. Robert Mays of The Athletic as well. He does the Athletic Football Show, if you want to classify him as national media. And then even Derek Klassen, who used to do stuff for Football Outsiders, who we hired to now do the show with Robert Mays after we no longer had Nate Tice. You can kind of maybe classify him as national media. He doesn't have a beat per se. And even the guy who does the QB school, I think it's JT O'Sullivan, maybe on YouTube. Got to look that up. I watched the QB school. I just realized I have no idea what the dude's name is, but I think it's that. He's another guy who was very high on Geno. I can tell by his breakdowns. So like Geno's not totally just thought of as a scrub. I do feel like outside of like the diehard film junkies and Mina, who falls into the film junkie category, there's just like the casual observation is just not there with Geno. It's just not like for fans or for analysts that again aren't like they're talking heads, but they're not really diving into it. Not every talking head you see watches a bunch of film. I've even talked to some of these folks. Like, I think Dan Orlovsky is like kind of a Geno guy too. I think it's getting there. But I do think this will be the last thing on that. I do think part of it is, and I have to go back and chart each one, but I think that Geno has not played particularly well on national television. He hasn't played bad, but I don't think he's had like one of the like a game like if he played this game on Sunday Night Football, for instance, it would be a lot different. But I just don't think I'd have to go back and look at each one. But I'm pretty sure his national TV run is not great. That's part of it. I got that right.
I think you might be right because he played the Niners on what was it, Christmas, and that was
here. Let's go. Let's go through. I got his game log up. Let's go through. So he has the Monday nighter against Denver to start the season in 2022.
Okay,
a couple tugs, but I don't think they scored in the second half at all. Maybe a field goal or something like that, but it was like a decent game. It more stood out just because they won, and he had the great
after the Russ trade.
Yeah, Russ trade, they won, and then he had the great quote, the not writing back quote. After that, though, they're not the only game on until Munich, and he played fine in Munich, but not like one of these games. Like he played fine, but they were down most of the game. It wasn't like super great. His next time is Thursday Night Football against the Niners. They lose 21-13. They were down most of that game. He threw like a garbage time touchdown to Noah to make that a one-score game, quote unquote, but like not like a super great Geno performance. And then the next time I think he's on national TV is the playoffs against the Niners, and that wasn't a great game. Let's see, 24-3. Oh, the Giants game, Monday Night Football, wasn't a super great Geno game. Did he even throw a touchdown in that game? No, he got hurt in that game. So he was 13 of 20. Not a lot of yards in that one. So yeah, like going through these, there's not a lot like, and these are big. It's not fair, but the national perception is shaped quite a bit by when you play on national television. Duh. And then the next time is, to your point, Christmas, where the Seahawks Thanksgiving, where the Seahawks don't play super well. He only throws for $180 and a loss, really lopsided loss. I don't think they scored a touchdown on offense. I think Jordan Brooks' pick 6 is all they had. And then Dallas. That Dallas game, he had 334. That's one of them games where it's like, oh, okay. He kind of showed some stuff, but then they lost. They lost.
Doesn't help.
They lost, and in particular, they lost when Geno had 2 drives that could have won the game. Now, they weren't totally his fault, but again, you're talking about national perception, and I get in the weeds of fault. Did you ball when I was at home with my family watching? Yes or no? Shapes the perception, and that's easily the best national TV game he's had since becoming the starter, and they lost. He played super well in 334, just torching Deron Bland, but yeah, in the end, they lost, and that's really his only one. So I think that's part of it. That's a long answer, but I feel like that people are curious about that. So I wanted to spend a little time on that one.
Eric Wall, no Kenny McIntosh. What's up with that?
Was not surprised by that. In part because Kenny can run really hard, but this was definitely one, they didn't run the ball super well, so not a lot of turns at it. So there's that. The other thing, Zach's just as good at catching the ball, better at protecting Geno. And I'm pretty sure that early in the game, Grubb realized, I'm going to need to leave the running back in there a few times. We need some help. And if you're going to do that against a good scheme like the Patriots have, you're going to want Zach in there. So, and I don't think Zach played a bunch of snaps. He's young. He didn't play like an overload of snaps. He had a good, played however many, and he's young. He's fine. So I think that's probably why you didn't see Kenny carry the ball. I believe Kenny played. Pretty sure he was on the field, but that's why you didn't see him get the run. Probably third down stuff, pass catching stuff. And the run game just wasn't churning enough for, like, Zach was probably never tapping his helmet tired. He wasn't going nowhere. 4 yards, 5 yards,
It's funny that you say that.
You see Ken Walker tap his helmet when he gets like a big run, 16, 12. All right, cool. I'm tired. Let me catch my breath. You running for 2 yards, 3 yards, -1. You ain't tired. So there's no reason to sub.
It's funny that you say that because Mike and I, we play flag football on the weekends. And sometimes the games will be really fast. We usually play to a certain amount. Usually it's 5 points the first game. We played a game 2 weeks ago. The game got to 5 quickly. And I see everybody over there getting water. I'm thinking, y'all didn't do nothing. We threw 3 pick sixes and y'all gassed already. So I think that's funny that you mentioned Zach Charbonnet. Chris, he didn't run much. When was he tired? So yeah, I feel you on that. That's a great point. This next one comes from Jimmy_Lee. If you're Ryan Grubb, would you use Laviska Shenault more in the run game against the Dolphins if Walker is still out? Kenneth Walker, that is.
Perhaps it's a good. I appreciate that question. I think what you got to do in the run game is, this is a theory more so than I can't go into great detail about application of this, but it's something I've been thinking about, and I noticed a little bit last year and some of the preseason, is trying to change the point of attack in the run game, because there were some plays today where it's like, man, you're trusting 70 to make something shake, and he's not. Or you're trusting 57 to go reach someone, and he's not. Or you're trusting 65 to go get someone. He usually can, actually. And- or you're trusting like a certain tight end or receiver. Like, I feel like you just got to mix up the point of attack, because they do have some really good blockers. Like, actually think Jackson's actually a really good blocker. Bobo's a good blocker, although he might have been the one that whiffed on the 4th down. Brady Russell's a good blocker. AJ Barner, even Noah's been a good blocker lately, although I wouldn't make him the point of attack much. I think you can use DK as the point of attack. And by the point of attack, I mean, like, every run has like where it's supposed to hit. Like, everyone has a job, but each run has a spot where it's supposed to hit. Like, maybe this run, like if Noah reaches if the tight end reaches the edge, then we got a crease right there, C gap, boom, hits it. I think that's how Ken Walker's touchdown came together last week. So and then you have some plays where it's like, ooh, if Connor and Lakin double team this guy and Connor gets to the linebacker, Ken's just going to wrap the gut, score, So adjusting who's in charge of being the key block. Because you just think, okay, the run game, and you think the O-line has to be nice. But you can kind of manipulate. I'm oversimplifying this a little bit. But you can manipulate, I think, where it hits and who is it hitting. Because like there's some plays where it's like, okay, if DK cracks this dude on this toss, then and we're pulling Charles or whatever. Like now the point of attack is more like Charles and DK versus running behind like Connor and AB, Anthony Bradford. We see the Niners are actually really good at that. Maybe that's the answer. Just study the Niners, whatever they're doing, because they're really good at playing with the angles and the motions to get advantageous spots where things hit. I think about that like I think it's like a toss to Christian McCaffrey. It's like the first play of the game last year at the game that was in San Francisco or in San Jose or whatever, Santa Clara, wherever the hell they play, Levi Stadium. You remember this, Chris? It's the first play. They toss it to McCaffrey and he goes like 80 yards. He doesn't score, but in that instance, the point of attack was like right at Darrell Taylor. It was like, if we just crack Darrell Taylor, we're up. And I think Jamal took a bad angle, but either way, to get to Jamal, you have to get past Darrell, right? So that's probably Grubb's next mission, whether that means using Shenault or more motions or whatever it is, under center, fly sweep stuff, shotgun stuff with some pullers or whatever, like just trying to get your best blockers, your most aggressive guys on their weakest guys right where the run's supposed to hit. I feel like that's because, like I was talking about earlier, you're not just going to find a bunch of new, better linemen. Come on. It's the NFL, dog. It's hard. How can you adjust around that? I think that's probably one of your best bets, because every team's got some weak links. Like some run defense schemes, like the first guy who's there might be a nickel, like there meaning at the ball carrier, at the point of attack. Okay, isolate that dude, isolate the rookie edge that a team might have, the rookie nose tackle a team might be playing. There's ways to really take advantage and change the angles and change the math in the run game. And Grubb's been kind of good at that, really good in the preseason. I think he's got to get deep in his bag while Ken is out. With Ken's in, I don't think it matters that much. But when Ken's out, you got to get deep in that bag.
This next one is from Bacon Brown J. Can you elaborate on DK's play so far this season? Such a high ceiling, but it seems like we are lingering in a Hobbit scale of ceiling here.
Man, that's tough. That's tough criticism there. What did DK have today?
Yeah,
129.
yeah. But
That's
see,
a
I think
good
his point
day.
is why can't they see this every week? And I think to my point, when I did the one big thing last week, and I talked about DK, sometimes you just miss him. There are just scenarios where the offensive line doesn't do their job, or let's see here, they are cover clouding DK, which probably happens more than often. So far, 2 weeks of the season, we've had two good corners on them, so it's literally one on one for the most part. Except for today on Sunday, Geno had a lot of autonomy to move around and do things at the line of scrimmage, and he freed DK open for a fade from the slot for a touchdown. So I think it's more so how can we get Geno and DK to have this type of connection every game? But that won't be the case because they look around the league and we've talked about it, how other receivers are used. Like AJ Brown, for example, it seems as if when he's playing every game, he is good for 10 targets, 5 or more catches, something to that magnitude. Whereas DK, he'll have this game, and then next week he might have 2 catches for 30 yards. Hopefully that won't be the case, but I think that's where that listener is asking, hey, why can't we get more consistency here throughout the season? I know we're 2 weeks in, but I think that might be what they're hitting at.
Yeah, I mean, of course. I think part of it is he's got to be a bigger red zone threat. That's part one. That's where you really can get your numbers, or score your touchdowns. Is you just get a bunch of red zone targets. And I think the other part of it is though is some of the stuff you're talking about where he's not only does he get shadowed the one on one, like sometimes they'll still one on one him and give help. Like there's a lot of attention paid to DK. Not unlike the attention that Justin Jefferson gets or that Devontae Adams gets. Those guys still eat too, particularly Devontae in Green Bay. For a while there, he was wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2. Still eating, right? Still having all pro years. CeeDee Lamb right now, same thing. He's wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 in Dallas. Now, I know they got they butt kicked today, but CD ate, I'm pretty sure, within that beatdown. What CD have today? I think he went over a huncho. Only 4 for 90. Wow. 65-yard catch. I didn't see that play. But anyway, you guys get my point. And the other thing I think that works against DK and most offenses, though, is that you don't get a lot of man coverage generally. Like the Patriots play a ton of man, and it's a lot easier to exploit in zones. It just really is. It's a lot easier to bracket guys when you're in zones. And you saw them just take advantage of moving DK around. And I think you're probably not going to see a lot more man. Looking at their schedule, I don't really think there's a lot more man teams coming up. Let's see. Dolphins, no. Lions, I haven't watched their defense yet. I hope not. Giants, oh God, really hope they don't do that. Secondary is awful. Niners, no. Falcons were last year, but they have a new DC, so I don't know about Jimmy Lake. Bills, yeah, just going through. Yeah, I mean, that's part of it is just the scheme. Sometimes it doesn't allow. And as we saw today, those 50-50 balls, man, they're tough when you're getting guarded by CB1. I don't know if they showed a slow-mo of the Christian Gonzalez PBU, but I mean,
Great
that was
defense.
a great play. Got his head around, dove like, whew, that is tough, man. Like the margin for error is not great on the DK targets because he's not getting guarded by scrubs. He's getting the best guy, the most attention, all the safety help. It's tough stuff. So you got to try to get him underneath, which I thought they actually did a really good job of today. Like even if you take the busted coverage out, what do you have? Man, I'm doing so much math today, Chris. What's up with me? Take the
I don't
busted
know,
coverage
man.
out. He still had like 70 yards, I think. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but then you add in the fact he had 2 drops. Probably could have went over 100 easy. Even without the busted coverage. So that's part of it. A lot of scheme stuff. Not to say it's impossible. Like I said, the Vikings do it, other teams do it, but it's just really hard, really really hard considering how teams play the Seahawks.
This is from Zach Nixon. What's the deal with Lakin? Why not go Christian Haynes at left guard?
Well, the problem is I don't know the problem like of Lake in particular. I just think he's kind of streaky because he has really good moments, and you can see it like in some of the drives where they had to have it. Walking down in overtime, walking down in regulation. They had some really good moments, and Lakin was part of that. I think what just run into, and he's just kind of good for, and this was the problem in New York as well. He's just good for like 2 or 3 just whiffs a game. And you just kind of hope that it doesn't end up like a bad whiff. Like today, I think Keon White just beats him bad and gets him on a sack, you know? But the problem is you may have one of those plays and you're like, oh my God, this guy stinks, But they had like 60 something snaps. I think we just got to accept that he's just good for one or two of those. For what it's worth, Connor Williams is too. He's good. He's good. He appears to be good for one or two of those as well. But the problem is they're not solid enough at right guard to just put in Christian at left guard. Because it looks like you need some help at right guard too. It's just really hard by Grubb, man. Like if you ask Grubb that, like not in a press conference setting, we just ran into him at Dino's pub in Renton, be like, "Yo, man, what's up? Why don't you put Christian Haynes in?" He'd probably be like, "Okay, so what do you want me to do on the right?" Like there's just not an easy fix. Although, what should happen, Chris, and we've talked about this, I think before, is you just go into practice maybe one day and be like, "Look, no one's job is safe. Everybody gets the same amount of reps this week in practice. My best two guards win. That's it. Don't care who they are. Don't care what your salary is. Don't care how long you've been in the league. Best two guards win. Go." You could do it like that. Do you want to do that in the middle of the season? Probably not. But that's probably the only way to solve it. Because like I talked about earlier, you're not probably going to call a team right now and just find help,
This next one is from @Seattle C Thin. Would you expect the Seahawks to get better on the offensive line after playing together for a while? And have you noticed anything from Connor Williams at center?
The answer to the second part is no. Answer to the first part is yes. I do think they're going to get better. I think they're going to get better. They're going to get more comfortable in Grubb's scheme. They're going to get more comfortable with the protections and the plans, sorting out things with blitzers and stuff. I think if Abe was back, that would help a little bit. But I feel like all of it's going to get better. Just because from what I hear, a little bit of how things are being taught and stuff, and what Grubb's like as a coach, you can tell like there's gonna be some improvement. And honestly, you guys can see it in game. There's been some improvement. Geno didn't run for his life that much in the second half. Like, I think he took a sack from Duggar. I don't know what the issue was. I don't know if he thought Tyler was hot.
Oh, okay.
Well, so you see what I'm saying? Like Tyler's right there. Duggar blitzes, and then Tyler just never looks at Geno. Geno looks right at him. Tyler just takes off, and then Geno just eats the sack. I don't know if that's a Geno problem. I don't know if that's a Tyler problem. I'd have to know the play call for that. So I don't know. But things like that are not O-line issues. More protection, figuring each other out. One of those sacks was really bad. Keon White got beat. I think one of them Connor got beat. Maybe. It's just can get kind of rough. Stone had some rough ones, a couple. But I mean, this is the reality. They don't have a great O-line. They need like a passable one. Like they just need like, all right, let's just not be bad. And today wasn't great, but I do feel like it can get better. I do feel like time on task starts to matter, particularly with the communication on third down and even the communication in the run game. I won't make the whole show about it, but I remember I had a long talk with Olu last year. Nothing for a story. I was just kind of bored one day and just talked to him about like how important the communication is for all their run checks. Because there's a lot of like all that pointing that you see them doing pre-snap. Obviously, it means something, but I was learning last year it means a lot. A lot of like, hey, before the play, you were going to have this guy. I'm pointing now because you now have this guy because they're about to do this based on what I'm seeing. That's what the center is really in charge of up there. That's why it's nice to have a veteran. And so all of that, I think, comes together better too. When you play together a little bit longer, particularly with the interior guys, because they're right next to the center who's in charge of all that pointing. So yes, I do think some of that will get better. Perhaps not in pass pro, unless it's like figuring out blitzes, which also matters. But I really think the run game has a chance to improve as they kind of feel out, get a rhythm, for how they want to hit certain stuff. I didn't realize there was such a rhythm to all that in communication and timing and chemistry and everything. I didn't realize that. At least to the extent I do now after talking to Olu. And I talked to Evan Brown about it last year too. Just kind of soaked up how important a really good center is and how he is to the communication to the rest of the group.
@Rosebug_22. Thoughts about McDonald taking a field goal on the last drive versus going for the win?
You guys know me, man. I wanted him to go for the kill. I believe this is the regulation we're getting asked about.
Correct.
So I think it was 1:43 left, 3rd and 1 at the 15-yard line. They're down 3. They They do a QB sneak.
Yeah, it didn't work.
Perfectly fine. Love the call. Don't even risk nothing fancy. You got a tall quarterback. He had success with sneaks already. Sneak it again. Didn't get it. Whatever. Chris, I would have just done it again. I would have did back-to-back sneaks. Back-to-back sneaks. Then they've been at like the 14-yard line with about a minute 30-ish left. I thought they would have got in. And you can just go win the game. It's the difference between playing to not to lose and then playing to win the game. They played in that scenario. All right, we just don't want to lose. Let's go tie it up. But the reason, and I was telling who was I sitting next to? Sitting to Matt Calkins of the Seattle Times today in the press box, and I was telling him the reason I was so against kicking in that situation is because they could still lose in regulation by kicking.
There's still
like
time.
if that was right, there was 58 seconds, I believe, when or 55 seconds or something when Jason Myers kicked the field goal to tie the game. So if there was like 13 seconds and they kicked it, it was like, all right, let's go to overtime. We can win the coin toss, get the ball first, go down and win. We've got to put our defense back on the field, you know? In this scenario that they had, even if you kick, your defense is back on the field. And the other team only needs a field goal, you know? So they don't even got to go to length of the field. So that's why I was like, just go for the win. You went for the win last week. Not the same scenario, to be fair to Mike. But y'all know me, I'm hashtag team never kick. So that was I was very disappointed there. I was happy I think they went for it a couple other times on fourth down, got one, didn't get the other. I was very happy, very proud of Grubb. Like you said, Chris, he probably does listen, sides with the never kick crowd over here sometimes. But that in that instance, I didn't like going for the kick just because it didn't guarantee overtime. If I was going to kick there, I would like it to guarantee overtime. He could easily kicked a couple big passes from Jacoby or whatever, some scrambles and field goal. That didn't happen. Credit to the defense, but it easily could have, and I don't think anyone would have been surprised, particularly how the Jacoby was A, scrambling, and B, how well they were running the ball.
I would say momentum-wise, I think I liked it from the standpoint that the previous possession before that, Julian Love blocked that field goal, and then the Seahawks go and tie the game. And I'm thinking, okay, a little momentum there. And then the Pats do get a chance with 55 seconds, and Mike McDonald's defense holds up. They punted. And then there was a thought process of maybe we can score and they just ended up taking a knee after a few timeouts. But I think to go back to it, I really like that. Maybe if Love doesn't block the field goal, okay, well, they're down 6, so you don't have a choice. But I think with Love getting that big time play, momentum is moving. The offense, well, they don't get a touchdown. They do go ahead and get a field goal. They tie it up. I think that block really changed how McDonald probably was going to call it, because obviously if he makes it, they're down 6 clearly. So yeah, you're going to have to go for it anyway. But I think the fact that Julian made such a great play, he was confident in the defense going out there and getting a stop. Maybe there was a hesitation, could be completely wrong on that, but I had no problem with it. Your defense has been playing fine for the most part outside of Gibson. You know, they did a really solid job of slowing down Stevenson. I think he had maybe 2 explosive runs, if not just one, but I was okay with it. I understood it, and it worked out. Patriots got the ball in overtime. Defense gets off the field, and Geno, who the show is started off with, he delivered when they needed him to, and they were victorious. So I see both sides, but I'm okay with the call at the end of the game there.
Stevenson had 2 explosive runs, but one of them is he had 2. He had an 18-yarder and a 12-yarder.
Yep.
I mentioned the explosive thing. I wanted to look that up because I was curious on that myself. But of course, you like them playing scared. That's because you like to kick. You know me. I ain't with this kicking stuff.
This next one comes from Slim. We're going to switch to the defensive side of things. Ziggy, not nice. How do we fix our rush defense? And what is something positive you took away from the defense on Sunday?
Like the second part of that, so I'll go to that first. I teased that we would talk about Tyrel Dodson. I really want to give some credit to him. He was injured all week. I think it was a shoulder injury. I don't know what's on the injury report, but I know I found out later shoulder was bugging him. I think he had a sleeve on, some funky sleeve too. So that confirms that. Chris, I cannot wait to see the all 22 end zone angle of that run stop on 3rd and 1 in overtime. That was big time. Big time. Like, That's not even no fancy stuff. That's football at its core. I'm in the gap, you're in the gap. You're trying to move me, I'm trying to stop you. It is overtime. It's beyond the fourth quarter. We both dog tired. Who is about to win? Man on man, and Tyrel stood him up. Stood up Ramadre. And Ramadre's a big boy. He is moving cats. He put a couple of Seahawks on their butts today. And not on that play. That is such an impressive play. And over it's winning ball. That's why he got a closer ball after the game. Shout out to Mike McDonald too, doing the whole closer game ball thing. I love that. Yeah, that's why he got one. That is the thing that stood out. I mean, they had some other good runs too. D Hall had a good stop, I think. Boye, Jay Reed, I don't think got credit for some, but he created some lanes for some guys to fill in. Like there were some runs that didn't go nowhere. I think they failed a couple times on short yardage. The Patriots did, like 3rd and 1, 3rd and 3. Like they had some failed runs in there in some short yardage situations. So it wasn't all just galloping all over the defense. But you want to talk about a positive? I thought, even forcing the fumble on Ramadre and the goal line, they had another one on 3rd and 2 after that fumble where Tyrese Knight, I think, stands him up. Like they were standing tall, and we've seen, even though it wasn't consistent enough, like the total numbers are bad. When it was time to tighten up, you saw some tightening up happening, and we have seen Chris in the past that not being the case and some tightening up. Guys just giving up, not even getting hands on guys. So I actually think the run defense schematically will be okay. Sometimes Mike just needs to adjust in game, which he's done a few times. Bring some guys down, let some guys loose, guys taking their shots, shooting some gaps. But the most positive thing I saw was late in game where it was time. Even Chris, I think to your point, they had a stop in the fourth quarter. I'm pretty sure it was like 3rd and 3 or something like that, where they got off the field. Yeah, 3rd and 3, and no, that's a touchdown. I don't have it in front of me right now, but they did have some. They had a couple where they stood tall, and in particular that one, Tyrel. That was just, whether he was injured or not, that's man football. That's football right there. I'm about to hit you. You're about to try to run me over. What's up? I'm about to win. That was big time, big time, big time, big time. He was smiling so crazy when I talked to him after the game too, holding that game ball. I was like, "It's the game ball." He's like, "Yeah, man, I got a game ball, man." He just looked so happy, like it was a Christmas present. He earned that though. He earned that. And his teammates talked it up too. They were like, "He's a dog, hurting all week. We need to stop." Goes and makes it happen. So that was stood out. But to fix it, I don't think it's broken per se. I think some of the tackling just got to get cleaned up. Like I think Gibson's 45-yarder, for instance.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure Boye has
Boye
him in his
Mafe.
grasp. Yeah, like
Just tackle him.
that's.
I know it's
I don't
not
even
easy,
think that's.
but
It's not, but like to the point of like the run defense being broken, I don't think that's like a scheme issue. Like when you can get two hands on a guy at the line of scrimmage, I think that would have been a loss actually as well.
no, it was a loss of 3 or 4 yards, and he somehow just squirted out of there.
Yeah, like that. So I think that that's an example of like it's not totally broken. Like there was a couple bad fits in there for sure. A couple where the first person to get Ramondre at the second level. I think some of that might be due to Tyrel, and then playing off of Tyrese Knight. Tyrese Knight played a lot for Jerome Baker today. For instance, that was Tyrese's first extended time. Not to say they're all his fault, but there was a lot of second level stuff where I'm like, yo, where's the backers? Like, so, and Tyrell even told me after the game, he's like, yeah, there was some stuff I can do a lot better in the run game in terms of communicating. I'm sure that's what he's alluding to. And some of them were just, wrap up. I mean, one of them, I think Julian Love just get run over. It's like, it's not a scheme thing. That's physics. Julian's listed at 195. Ramondre is 227 and built like a bowling ball. That's going to happen sometimes. That just, no matter who you play. But in general, I don't think it's like a broken scheme issue. Very fixable, particularly when Tyrese Knight this is Tyrese Knight's first time being able to like, all right, I played, now let me watch the film. That's going to make a world of a difference, I think, for a young player.
This next one comes from Corey. It's 2 games, but grade the defense and the offense, Mike.
I would probably, that's a good question. I haven't given that as much thought as I probably should have. I would probably go with maybe B's for both. I think I feel like they both have done a lot more good than bad, which is why they're 2-0, obviously. But the reason I'm not giving A's because it's just been some prolonged stretches of bad things. I guess, particularly on offense up front. Like the offense was responsible for 4 points for the other team last week. That's absurd. That's really disgusting when you think of in the same quarter. What? Awful. Pass protection shaky leading to interception. Like I just, just drops today. Some of the run game stuff today. So I can't give them an A, even though they've done enough to win twice. Same thing with the defense. The way they were playing the run in general today, not great. But in general, more good than bad. I think what's really leaning me towards like solid Bs, maybe even a B plus defensively, is the situational stuff for both of them. Really solid situationally, even something small. Like this is just a really small thing. But Chris, I bet you I have to go listen to the broadcast. I bet you they were wondering why the Seahawks threw that pass to DK at the end of the first half with no timeouts. And then they got up and spiked it because that will usually be like, oh my God, you threw it towards the middle of the field, no timeouts. The Seahawks practiced that situation so much they know, okay, here's how much time we got. Here we go. DK knows to get up, find Connor Williams, hand him the ball, everyone line up spot. Like that's an operational thing. And by comparison, look at the Patriots. They were bad in pretty much all of their situational stuff today. That was damn near the difference in the game. They didn't get it done in overtime. Didn't get it done at the end of the first half. I think they ended up botching their end of the first half drive. Yeah, like you can see the difference in operations. That's like really big deal. So I think that was really good for both of them. I thought both situationally were very solid in both games generally. Yeah, and I think just the exploitation of the matchups on offense. Yeah, I think they've had a really good start. Like I think they should beat the hell out of Miami, for instance. That should be a beatdown. You should go into the Detroit game on Monday Night Football 3-0. I think so. I think B's across the board feels about right.
This is from Aaron Cruz. What is something positive you saw that make you believe this football team can compete for the playoffs? And what is something negative that you saw that will keep this team away from the postseason?
Yeah, the running game. You got to be able to run it. Geno's not going to be able to do this against not just Geno, just not going to be able to do this against good teams consistently when it's winning time. I mean, maybe you can, but it's just hard.
You gotta be
And then
Patrick Mahomes or Lamar, man. Or you gotta
yeah,
be elite of elite.
And then, but those are great examples, right? Those are elite
And
players.
they still, yeah.
Lamar and them had a chance to go win the game today at the crib and lost. I'm pretty sure. I know they lost. I think they had the ball last after the Raiders kicked a field goal. And then Mahomes needed a 4th and 16 to win at home today. A 4th and 16 heave defensive pass interference. I saw that one live. It's just hard to do that, consistently against a good team. So, yeah, I think that the run game is something. I honestly think the defense, I'm not too worried about. Honestly, I know the run stuff was bad today. Like I said, I don't think it was as much scheme as just some tackling, but I give them the benefit of the doubt. I think the tackling is going to be good, like it was better. I think the only two did they have a defensive penalty in week 1? I don't think they did.
Ooh, that's a good question.
If they did, I don't remember, and it wasn't a bad one. Today, I think the only two were what? Spoon? I want to say.
Off top, I'm trying to remember. I have to go look at my sheet here.
Yeah, yeah, if you can check that out while I'm looking here, it should be in the game log somewhere
Game
too.
notes. Yep.
Yeah, but in general, I just while Chris looks at that, I don't feel like I saw a lot of bad penalties because where beforehand, on defense, I'm just looking at in particular, Chris. I feel like I don't know if you guys were doing this, at the crib, but like I'd be in the press box, it would be like 3rd and 5. I'd be like, all right, who's about to get a illegal contact penalty to gift them a first down? Because that's just what they were for a while. It felt like on defense, it'd be like penalty on Ugo, penalty on Marquise Blair, penalty on Kobe Bryant, penalty on Reek, penalty on Trey Brown. Like everybody kept getting all these illegal contact and DPIs and holdings. They were just giving away first downs a lot, it felt like, over the last 2 years. I don't think that's going to be an issue. Granted, Spoon gave up 2 today. But if you're asking me, Mike and Chris, Is Spoon going to keep giving up first downs all year? No, probably not. And that just overall suggests clean operations on defense. I think that's really encouraging because you can't beat yourself. However, I cannot say that for the offense. I think they had a ton of penalties today.
Yeah, it appears that Spoon was the Lone Ranger that out there with those 2 penalties.
Yeah, and I don't think they had one week 1. So they're just playing clean ball, on defense. Really encouraged by that. On the flip side, oh my goodness, that's going to be their undoing. Just his offensive penalties, man. I feel like you got to, even if you're not blocking super well, you just can't have holding. You can't have, and this is everybody. It ain't just the O line. Like DK, I think has already had like 4 penalties or something, like 2 games. Oh, he had 2 last game. He had 1 today. Anthony Bradford, I think, has had like 3 or 4 already. A holding in the end zone. He had 2 today. I want to say. I think he punched a guy. What was the other one? I think he had a hold or something. Like that side of the ball, I'm much more worried about because they're not as clean on that stuff. They're cleaning with their operations situationally, but tons of penalties. Don't like that. They're on everybody too. I think Noah had one last week, or a tight end had one last week. AJ Barner this week, DK this week. Holdings, ineligible downfield, like we talked about earlier on the screen. Just bad stuff, man. So I'm encouraged by the defense in that regard, but the offense really got to clean that up.
This next one comes from Holly. How much do you think Seattle's defense will be able to get after Miami's offense?
Oh, quite a bit, because I think Tua is not going to play. He just can't keep. He can't keep having. Again, to national TV stuff. Everyone thinks Tua's brain is a lot worse than some of the other guys who aren't getting concussed on national TV. There's other guys in the league right now who've had more concussions than Tua, at least the same amount. But Tua's a talking point because he keep getting them on national TV. I think he's done it like every time. I'm pretty sure he's got one. Every time he's got one in the NFL, it's been on national TV. So anyway, I don't think he's going to play. I think they're going to play Skylar Thompson, and I have no faith in that gentleman. I do not. I really don't. And plus, I just think so much of his scheme, Mike McDaniel, that is, his scheme really works with timing, rhythm. Tua is probably the best at the anticipation, timing, throwing before the window opens up, and then the guy hitting the guy right in the hands. I just think he's really good at that. But also at the same time, even with their scheme, I think Tua would be throwing it blind sometimes. Just as, like I think the interception he had, it's not his fault. Like it kind of hit the receiver, some guy named like DeBose or something, whatever his name was, hit him right in the hands on Thursday night, or right in the shoulder, kind of. But you just see like Tua's just throwing to a spot. It don't matter who it is, what the coverage is. He's just like, all right, my read is here. And that works with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, but it's like, that's just not, you got to be able to read defenses. You know what I mean? Like, can't just, all right, here's a dig route coming, fire it in the middle. And he's really accurate too, so that helps. But yeah, I think they should beat the hell out of them. I think this is a game where the Dolphins, we'll talk more about it later in the week, but I think this is a game where they can win up front. I think the Dolphins have some decent players up front, but nobody you're like really like worried that you can't move off the ball. So I think they'll have some good stuff there. And I feel like they got matchups they can exploit that aren't Jalen Ramsey on DK. Because, that's one you got to be careful on. Jalen's a smart, savvy corner. But everywhere else, though, in their secondary, as long as you're not just throwing the ball right to Javon Holland, I think it could be okay. I know that was about Miami's reaction about Miami's offense. But in general, I think they should win. But I think they're going to get right after the Skylar Thompson cat. And it's going to be a long day. Like that it was for Bo Nix.
They don't have Tua. That eliminates a lot of their offense. So what they want to do with Tua is not going to be available. They're going to have to do a lot of things different, and I don't think that's going to be to their benefit against the Seahawks defense. I think if they had Tua, it makes things interesting because timing purposes and all the movement they can do, they're still going to do the movements, but a lot of it is, as you mentioned, timing, and that's something that they talked about before Tua went down, is how they use a lot of timing routes. I know you're going to be there. The ball's coming. Regardless of what the coverage they're in, this is what we're planning for based on what we've seen on film. And to your point, you got to be able to go out there and say, oh, this is what they're in. That timing is not going to work. I got to change it. So I'm with you. I think the Seahawks should have a pretty lax day on defense. Obviously, they're still going to have to go out there and compete. But if they do what they need to do, they should have no problem beating the Miami Dolphins week 3.
I'll put it this way before you go to the next question. I think I'm going to pick up the Seahawks defense in fantasy if they're available. I'm in a bazillion leagues. in every league, I'm going to be looking to pick them up if they're not picked up already. That shows you the level of confidence I have because I think Mike McDonald, man, I think he's going to show Skylar Thompson, who's not a rookie. He's played some games. I think he might even have played their playoff game, if I'm not mistaken, a couple years ago. So he's not totally green, but boy, I think Mike McDonald's about to show him some stuff he ain't never seen. It's going to be a tough day at the office for him.
Speaking of tough, Brett Tuft, he wants to know, is it okay to be really excited about and raise expectation regarding this Seahawks team?
Yeah, I don't think they ever should have been. You guys have probably heard me before the season. I don't think they ever should have been low. This was a team that won 9 games. I expected if you're going to fire Pete, said this a million times in the offseason, you need to expect a big jump, not a marginal jump, not like another rebuild year. Pete knew what he was doing, and you can see it by some of the things and the principles that he believes in that the new guy is even on, preaching finishing, establishing the run. Like these are things that like Pete believed in as well. It's not like Pete just forgot how coaching works. A lot of these coaches are all preaching the same stuff. Even some of the scheme is still the same, like how they're using certain guys. Like the Seahawks put Draymond on the edge. Oh, where's Draymond now with the new staff? Permanently on the edge. Seahawks were using Spoon inside and outside. Oh, what's Mike McDonald and his staff? Like there's a lot of stuff schematically, just philosophically that aligns. So I say that to say the expectations always should have been high. They're high inside the building, they're high inside the locker room. They should be high. You should expect with as much. Look at the high-priced players they have too. This ain't just a cheap. This ain't a cheap roster. DK making bread. Tyler restructured, but still making bread. Geno making bread. Not relative to other quarterbacks, but he's not a rookie either. Leonard making bread. Chenna's making bread. Remember, he got an extension after 1 year. So did J Love. J Love just got bread. Yeah, like there's some guys making bread on here too. So you're not talking about a cheap roster. A lot of the dudes we just named are veterans. Actually, all of them are. So you're not talking about a very young roster either. It's younger, but not young. Go win. So yes, I feel like even if they had lost these 2 games, your expectations, if they were high, I think that's fine. Since they've won them, yeah, definitely should be sky high. It would be nicer for standing purposes if they had won an NFC game already. They're going to start with 3 AFC games, but I really think they should go 3-0. Just, I think, Chris, you've been saying that before this season even started.
Yeah, I knew
it's really going to come to fruition now.
Yeah, before the season started, I thought cakewalk, beat the Broncos, rookie quarterback, and then Jacoby Brissett. You've faced him before and beaten him. Okay, 2-0. Miami Dolphin game did scare me, but Tua's out now. So it looks like he will be out. I don't know
he
if
ain't going to play, dog. Did you see that, man? You see his fingers?
That's bad. Yes, I saw his fingers, but I've also nerded out and watched some studies on the concussions, and he could be ready to play if he's cleared. So I don't think he will be cleared, but that was going to be the one loss that I did have on their schedule to open the season. I think Miami's offense was just going to be a tough task, but no Tua, like as we just talked about, I think it shouldn't be a problem. So yeah, the Seahawks have a great start, 3-0. Obviously, it's an AFC team, so it doesn't really matter until you get to those NFC. But hey, having a 3-0 start, you know what that builds? Morale. It builds confidence. You go to Detroit and you go out there 4-0. Oh man, that's and the new era. Oh man, that is huge for the coaching staff, for this team. They're probably one of the top teams in the NFC if they were able to beat the Dolphins, head on the road, and then beat the Lions. That would be very impressive.
Yeah, and I think look at the division too. I mean, the Niners are dealing with some things. They'll turn it around. The Niners are good. They're well coached. The Rams are just in hell. And I don't know what to make of Arizona quite yet. I have to see.
Fun team.
I knew they'd be frisky, and I feel like a lot of people could have anticipated that too. Kyler Murray is real deal, if you guys were not sure, and so is Maserati Marv. Boy, this rookie class of dudes is about to come on now. They had rough rookie games, but yeah, it's about to turn. I'm talking about the receivers. I don't know if I said that, but receivers.
I knew what you meant.
About to turn up. Yeah, so I think the expectations should be high, man. They should. The division's probably still not within reach. I got to see them against the Niners, but this is going to be a good team.
Well, Mike, since you put it out there, Zach wants to know, should I buy Super Bowl tickets?
You should buy us Super Bowl tickets. Sure. You buying them for me, Zach, the 3 of us, me, you, Chris. let's go. Let's go to New Orleans, man, and see Kendrick. Let's do it. No, I don't think this is not Super Bowl, not Super Bowl. But hey, man, go buy the tickets, and then if you can sell them, make some money. But I get the gist of the question is this going to be one of those type of teams? I just have a hard time seeing it because of the front. It's a tough front to work around, but I do think you could get a situation where some turnover stuff breaks right. Oh, that's the last. Is the last question?
Yes.
I should have mentioned this earlier. Another thing I'm encouraged by. They are pressuring the quarterback really well. That's something I'm also encouraged by. I feel bad not mentioning that. Maybe I did and didn't elaborate, but they were getting after Jacoby, just like they got after Bo Nix. Both of those guys did a really good job with sack avoidance, but you could just see how much harder that makes it to function. Even if you don't take a sack, like Jacoby he had some plays where, he didn't take a sack, but he just threw the ball in the dirt or threw it away or whatever. It's still a negative, and they got to Jacoby a few times today. I think 3 total. But in general, they were just all over him. He's just a slippery cat. I mean, Boye had him for a safety, I'm pretty sure, in the first half. Man, Boye is going to hate this tape. Like, he played well, but he's going to be like, yeah, they're going to watch that tape and be like, dog, I could have won NFC Defensive Player of the Week if I'd have just got the guys on the ground, for real. They had a good game. Boye did too, but yeah, that's the other thing I'm really encouraged by. That's going to make up for some of the other stuff. They are just pressuring really well. They did a play that Chris found in the offseason that they did to the Lions, where they blitzed both the outside corners.
Yes,
found Baltimore do it against the Lions, and then Mike draws it up again in week 2. Reek gets right there and doesn't get him on the ground. No, Mike McDonald's a sicko. That's why I think he's going to beat the hell out of Skylar Thompson and them if they have to play them in week 3. Because, dog, that's just, how do you plan for Spoon and Reek coming at you? Come on, dog. I mean, the answer is get out the way like Jacoby did. But I just feel like over time, they're going to have, I think, like 3 games this year with like 6 or more sacks. Because eventually it's going to be too hard to get rid of the ball. So, or just elude pressure. So, and then more pressure, more turnovers, blowouts. Like, I think it's just they're going to have some games where they just beat the hell out of some folks. And I think Miami might be that first one. And then it's trending towards perhaps one of those Rams games being that too, unless they can find some O-linemen off the street.
Not likely, but hey, it is what it is. So another episode of Seahawks Man to Man. We want to thank you guys for listening and watching. And if you are listening, yes, you, I'm talking directly to you, sir, ma'am, go ahead and hop on the YouTube channel, search Seahawks Man to Man. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button because we got a lot more content. We have our one big thing that we'll discuss prior to our preview of the Miami Dolphins, which we'll ask a few questions about this offense and what it's supposed to look like without Tua. And then we'll come back later on in the week with standout plays from this matchup against the Patriots that you guys saw on Sunday. But yeah, we appreciate all the love and support. Mike, is there anything you want to add before we get out of here?
Thank you for all of the love. Genuinely appreciate it. Like Chris said, we got a couple more shows this week. We're going to be on a 3-show cadence, three show a week cadence. At least 3 on YouTube. That'll be the final one. Is always YouTube exclusive, but at least 2 audio, 1 via YouTube. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Instagram, Seahawks Man to Man. Forgot to shout out page. Shout out on TikTok as well. I think everything is Seahawks Man to Man on there too. On everything, it's man, the number 2 man. Thank you again for all of that love and support. Even if you don't tap in necessarily to those mediums, just hitting the like, the subscribe, whatever it is, the follow. It means the world to us. So thank you in advance for all that. Again, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all of that. Like, subscribe, follow on everything. Thank you in advance.